Hi folks, today I want to talk to you about the hooks of your paper. Now, this story begins all the way back 15 years ago when I was in college and I was studying at the Los Angeles Film Study Center. In LA, I was studying film and screenwriting. And during that course, I learned some things about films that have changed the way that I watch films now. The first being that every film and every script is hung on a hooks that go throughout the story. And so, for example, you can see here for the first 10 pages of every script or the first 10 minutes of every movie, we're establishing the ordinary world of the protagonist. Um, then around page 10 to 13, 15, we have what's called the inciting moment where the action gets started. Then around page 17, they have a yes-no moment where the protagonist has to decide whether or not they're going to say yes to propositions that's offered to them or no. If they say yes, the story moves forward and they are able to continue in the plot, or if they say no, the whole story shuts down. So if we think of, for example, the movie The Hunger Games, think about how the movie opens. The first 10 minutes of the movie are all about Katniss, and what is she doing? She's out in the woods hunting. It's very peaceful, it's very quiet. She's providing for her family. So we're establishing the ordinary world of the protagonist. We see this is her day-to-day existence. Think about what's the inciting moment. What kind of gets the action going? Well, it's the reaping, right? Where the capital comes and they start to draw out names for who's going to compete in the Hunger Games. That suddenly moves the action forward. And think about the page 17 moment, the yes-no moment, where if Katniss says yes, the story moves forward. If Katniss says no, the story shuts down. Well, that's the moment when she decides to volunteer as tribute, right? If she hadn't volunteered as tribute, the story would have ended. Her sister would have gone to the Hunger Games and died. But she says yes, and she moves forward, and then we have this trilogy. In the same way, every good academic paper that you write is going to be hung on certain hooks. And this book, They Say, I Say, is introducing you to these hooks. So in your work that you've done for class, you've been reading the introduction, the first chapter, you've been familiarizing yourself with what they call the templates and the moves. And so I want to show you these moves as a metaphor of hooks, that every paper you write for me, no matter what the content is going to be hung on these hooks. So if we look here, the first hook of a paper is the introduction and the thesis. The second hook is the they say, where you're introducing the context of this conversation that you're joining. Who's gone before you? Who's been talking about this? You're referencing them. Then you're going to have the I say. Now you're going to step in and contribute what you have to say. Either you're going to agree, or you're going to disagree, or you're going to do both, agree and disagree. Then you have the naysayer and the answer. And this is where you have to bring in a voice that would disagree with your I say. Who would possibly argue with what you're saying? And then you don't want to just leave the argument there hanging. You need to answer the argument. You need to offer a rebuttal. So that's the naysayer and the answer. And then the final hook of the academic paper that I'm going to have you do in my class is not a traditional conclusion, but a so what, who cares? You're not just going to regurgitate everything that you've said in the paper until then. You're going to offer a larger, more universal picture of why does this matter? Why am I reading what you have to say? Why is this important? Okay, so those are the hooks of the academic paper that you're going to be working with this entire semester. Every single paper you write for me is going to be hung on these hooks. Good luck.